Hey there, and welcome back to East Carolina University for another edition of Pirate Parents Live. I'm Chris Stansberry, Associate Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. Joining me today, I have Lauren Thorne, who's the Associate Dean of Students, and Emily Lynn Adkins. She is the Assistant Director for Parent Family Programs. Those of you who have joined us in the past, a little bit more of an informal setting than we've done in the past, but that's very intentional. Our topic for this afternoon, if you're watching the live edition, as we're now in exams, it is home for the holidays, because we know a lot of our students, first-year students in particular, getting ready to go home. Get ready to see mom and dad and grandparents and friends and so forth, and we just kind of felt that it was very important that we kind of have this as a conversation setting with you to maybe help you guide some conversations as you go into your holiday break and when your students are coming home. As always, we've got an iPad here. We're going to be monitoring. If you have any questions, feel free to put those into the comments section, and we'll talk about it as we get to that point. But so I just kind of start with each of you. Emily Lynn first. It's kind of a big moment for parents as well as it is for students at the end of that first semester. Talk a little bit about that from the parent side, what they're probably experiencing as they're watching and dealing with student getting ready to come home.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I think that there's probably a lot of excitement. They're ready to see their students and welcome them home. Maybe a little bit of anxiety. So for our empty nester families, you may have gotten used to having a quiet house or a clean house. So for our families who have multiple siblings, you may have gotten used to depending more on that middle child or one of the younger siblings. And so what's that dynamic going to be like with your student returning home? So lots of excitement and maybe a little bit of anxiety, but how you kind of navigate some conversations and prep as they come home will help with that.
Lauren, let's talk about the anxiety that comes with it. End of the semester, it's pretty much at peak level.
It really is.
So they're going to be going from peak level to home.
Yeah.
Mom and dad may get to see some of that.
Right. So, I mean, I think the important thing is to remember, especially for our first year students, this is a very pressured, very intense time. They've spent a lot of time studying. They've put a lot of energy and effort, hopefully, into preparing for those final exams. Many of them have likely gotten into some poor sleeping habits or eating habits and kind of been off their routine. And so it is very normal for there to be sort of this decompression mode that they go into once they get home. So when a lot of families have a lot of expectations of what they want their students to do and how they want to be involved in different family activities, your student may be prepared to sleep for 3 days. And I think that even though we know that our students do need to catch up and kind of regain some of that lost sleep from the exam time, we want to find kind of a happy compromise between the family and the students. Some of them may feel a lot of pressure as professors start posting grades. There may be some surprises, either good or bad, some disappointments. And so I think just kind of going back to some of those conversations that hopefully we had during the summer can be really helpful. So sort of what did we learn from this experience? What were some of the things that worked well this semester, as well as what are some of the things that we know we want to change going into the spring semester? And I do encourage you to talk to your student about sort of what classes they tend to do best in. You know, they may have figured out that early morning classes are not their cup of tea. Online classes may not be what they like either. And giving them an opportunity to think about that as they go into the spring semester and we're still in that course adjustment time. The other thing that I would suggest is, our university staff members and many of our faculty members are here through the next week or two. And so if students do need to contact their advisor to talk about changing scheduling or to kind of come up with plan B for the spring semester, or even, we always hate to say it, but sort of worst case scenario, they've failed several classes and need to start looking at grade replacements or things like that, our university officials are here and are able to help guide some of those conversations.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because sometimes the hardest part, as a parent of two boys, boys tend to, you ask a question and you get fine, it's good, and then it ends like that. I'm sure some of you can relate. How do we start that conversation, particularly with grades, right? Because there are some rules at the university, right? Mom and dad can't call, say, I want to know what Steve is doing on his exams, and how do you start that conversation with them when they come home beyond, so how did the semester go, which will be met with fine.
Right. I mean, I think the challenge is that anytime our students kind of get put on the defensive, a lot of times that wall goes up. And so they shut down, they don't give us the information that we're looking for. And so allowing for some open-ended conversation, really kind of being direct with some of the questioning, but also allowing for the student to explain, you know, this class was a lot harder than I thought it was, or it took me until October to figure out what the professor was looking for with this particular process. And so being able to have a discussion about it and not just sort of like a blame game. We do want to see students take responsibility for their actions. That's part of the maturational process. That's part of kind of becoming independent. But we also know that there are going to be some factors that impact their ability to be successful. And so let's look at the whole picture. Let's take into account everything that's happened this semester. Like, we are the first in the Dean of Students office, first to acknowledge that this was a weird semester. We had the hurricane, we had a lot of different stuff going on. We know that for a lot of our students, it was not the easiest transition into the college experience. And so let's talk about how that affected them, but then also let's really be able to do that 180 of how are things going to be different in the spring. There are a lot of ways to help recover from an academically challenging semester. And so your advisor, our office, even some of the campus living professionals, all of them can help provide some insight and hopefully some direction on what to do next based on the information that we get. There are also university policies and procedures like the Student Academic Appellate Committee, which is run through our registrar's office, where if you do need to look at a retroactive process, either a term or course withdrawal, that is something that is an option, but only for certain circumstances, and certainly our office and a lot of the advisors can help guide on that process as well.
So, and Emily, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to piggyback a little bit on what you were saying and just say that also the role of the parent has changed.
Yeah.
And so you're not necessarily handing down edicts anymore and saying you must make A's like you were in high school, but now you have more of a collaborative discussion with them. And so it is important for you to listen and learn and let them test new ideas with you and kind of explore their new feelings and thoughts as well. So.
And I think it's important too, if they come home, and it's not uncharacteristic for a first-year student to not have the same grades that they did in high school, right? Some cases they were in a small school, now they're in a very big school. Right. Sometimes it's just adjustment, could be a lot of different things. And maybe they didn't do what they thought, or they weren't ready, or they weren't prepared. They had a less than stellar semester. So the role of the parent here can also be a little bit of coach.
Right.
Right? You know, for those that played sports or did different things, I know a lot of coaches go, okay, so you made the mistake. How are we going to fix that?
Right.
How do we not replicate that same again? And I think that's one of the things, and you know, jump in either way here, but I think as a parent too, we want to guide them back on track. We've done that our whole life as parents, right? You see them, they trip, they fall, we pick them up, we dust them off, and they get back on track. And really, this is not much different.
It really isn't. And what's great is that you do have that network of support here at the university. That's our role to help provide those other options. This week alone, I've had several meetings with parents and students where we've talked about, okay, you know, we calculate the GPA and we figure out if you're, you know, for those of our students who are further along and maybe on academic warning or academic probation, kind of, you know, what do you need in order to be able to remain at the university? What are the classes that we need to focus on and put that energy towards? What are the classes that they're asking for incompletes, which at this point in the semester, now that we're into exams, really isn't an option, but, you know, to kind of keep in mind for future semesters. And so with those of us who are accustomed to having those conversations and kind of initiating those broaching those difficult topics, it is an everyday thing, and we are used to working with families and figuring out what's going to be best for the student and what's going to be realistic and how to move forward in a way that allows them to be successful and really figure out what they want to get from the college experience.
Emily, let's transition off the grade side of it, right? Because that may be a one-time or a two-time thing, and then we're moving on. They're going to be home for a couple of weeks. Mom and dad are going to have to be dealing with some changes, perhaps. Maybe in August, a curfew or a bedtime existed that maybe they want to go back to having that.
Right.
Right.
Again, talk about some of the adjustments that mom and dad may need to make because they see their student coming home with some different habits too.
Sure, definitely. Well, I think it's important for parents and family members to remember to foster that independence that your student has started to gain while they were here. So, and that starts by opening conversations and talking about, what was your schedule like at school? How can we make it fit for us? Because of course there are still expectations when they're home. So set those expectations out, talk together, have a conversation about those expectations together, and come to an agreement together. So it's not necessarily the parent deciding something, but it may be the student making that decision as well.
Yeah, making them a part of that is a
Right.
big piece. Forever and ever before they went to school, it was go clean your room. I need this straightened up. I need you to take the trash out. I need you to do this. And now they may be different things like we're having our family Christmas Eve or church service, or what's that expectation of the parent? Do I expect you to be at all the things that you were at before?
Right.
And making sure that the student has input, right? For the last 4 months, they've done their own.
Right.
They've decided when they went to bed, if and when they ate, and when they went to class, and what social time they had. All of that has been in their own, and I think for mom and dad or grandparent or whoever it would be, making them part of that is really a big deal.
Definitely. And I think it's also fair to think about, just the amount of time we're talking about, between the time when residence halls close until they reopen is a little over 3 weeks. And so it's the longest length of time that our students have been away. Or have been home, and so really thinking about what's a good use of that time. Certainly a lot of relaxation, a lot of opportunity to recoup, but is this a good time to find a seasonal part-time job? Can you get some volunteer hours in, some shadowing if you're in kind of one of the allied health professions, and really making sure that the student doesn't get to the point where they're just itching to get away from home just simply because there's not much going on. People, parents usually still have to work during that time. And so what's the best use of that family time that you do have together, and then allowing your student to have some say-so in the free time that's available outside of that?
It is important to let the student recoup some.
Yeah.
Even the physical side, mental side
Yes.
too. They've been in a very stressful piece.
Right.
Emily Lynn, for the parents, what kind of tips, what kind of thoughts might we offer up to them as they welcome that student back home for a couple weeks?
Yeah, so I think, again, it's important to continue to foster that independence, allow them to make some decisions on their own, but again, set those expectations. Don't forget about any siblings that are at home. If you have expectations that your student spends some one-on-one time with their siblings, please lay that out there, because that's important as well. Start, again, I said earlier, this process of listening and learning. Listen to what they've been doing, learn about what they've been doing, allow them to share ideas with you, and they've been learning a lot, and living away from home for the first time, or even our upperclassmen, you continue to learn more about yourself and what your belief system is, and so let them explore and talk to you about what they're learning and what they're feeling and what their new thoughts are. So ask them questions, ask them what their favorite class was and why. Ask them about what goals do you have for next semester, so you can start to make those adjustments for next semester as well.
And on a more serious note of that too, there may be some things that you notice that give you pause as they come home. Maybe some things are different. They're maybe a little more responsible. Maybe they're not as together as you thought. There'll be a lot of different things. But there may be some also other signs that could be alarming signs. And Lauren, in Dean of Students' office, you see this on a regular basis. But what are some things that maybe mom and dad, if they start to see somebody verbally acting out, somebody short-tempered, some of those things that maybe should be a concern, that maybe they don't just chalk it up to, well, they're just home, it's the end of the semester.
Right. I mean, I think that, this is going to be a great opportunity to observe some of those behavioral changes. For some students, and we talked about this during orientation, but sort of the idea that they go into college expecting a certain experience, and then when it doesn't live up to those expectations, there's frustration, there's disappointment, there can be some isolation. And so for some students, they may have kind of gone through the semester without making a real significant friendship or building those connections on campus. So certainly looking for signs of depression, whether it be significant changes in eating and sleeping patterns, isolating themselves from friends or loved ones, being uncertain about high school relationships and the way that those play into sort of their social support network now. And of course, any signs of self-harm, anything like that is going to be cause for concern. We also, of course, look at significant changes with increase of drinking behaviors, any type of substance use, abusing prescription medications. All of that would be a red flag, and certainly something where you would want to have a good conversation with your student about what that is addressing, because a lot of times students have picked up what we call maladaptive coping strategies. It helps them cope, it helps them deal with a significant experience or emotion, but it's not necessarily healthy. And so we want to, of course, be able to address that and figure out, is there a healthier way of being able to handle some of those things, and how can we do that, and what can we as a family do to support that? So I think all of that is really important. I also want to say, like when Emily Lynn was talking about sort of those new ideas and the things that maybe their belief patterns and stuff like that have been challenged at school, I think it's a really great opportunity too to have those conversations about their own kind of identity and noting that there may be some changes with political or religious beliefs or things like that where they've been exposed to a lot of new ideas. And so for some families that can be especially distressing, but also a very normal part of the identity development. And so kind of figuring out what's related to which part of sort of that process. And then of course any anxiety signs are going to be, having difficulty falling asleep, staying up until all hours of the night because they can't sleep or focus, and there may be some not being able to relax, not being able to really be present and enjoy themselves because they're always worried or thinking about kind of that next thing. And so some of those anxiety signs go very hand in hand with sort of the study stress and academic pressure that our students are experiencing. But once that has, they've moved through that, there really should be an opportunity for that to alleviate. And if it doesn't, I would say that would be a concern.
Emily Lynn, I think your point earlier is very valid, in the listening to your student is a big piece of that. I know one of the things that I tend to want to do is when an opportunity comes up that I call the teachable moment,
Right.
that then I go on my 20-minute dialogue, to which my son's like, oh,
Yes.
at the end of it, and probably didn't listen to any part of that. But I think maybe switching that to the listening side, they're going to give you some signs of things if they want to talk about it. They may throw something out there like, I just didn't feel like I connected. And you might want to go, well, what do you mean? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Right.
But they may not be ready to talk about it at that moment. So I think there's some give and take with mom and dad and family when you go back. Another one would be the siblings. You talked about this too. If I have an older brother or sister that's in college and I'm the second child and I'm the only one, for the last 4 months I've been the only one in the house.
Yeah,
I've been the king or queen of the castle as it is, and then when older brother or sister come home, I'm back in the corner.
Right.
Thoughts from mom and dad. How do we keep everybody, get that whole big family connected?
Sure, yeah, well, I think that you do want to carve out time that the siblings can spend together by themselves without mom and dad too, so that they can reconnect as well. But there again has to be those expectations. So if the sibling is of driving age and has had free reign over the car for the last 4 months, then older sibling comes home and takes the car without asking. There has to be some conversation and expectations there as far as the siblings go. So go ahead and set the groundwork now, and that way the siblings can kind of reconnect and also maybe not fight.
We are starting to kind of come to the wrap-up side of this, but if you do have questions, please do feel free. We're monitoring on Facebook Live, and if you're not watching the live edition and you're doing this later on, Emily Lynn and her folks are always, as well as Lauren, monitoring this, so if you have questions, go ahead and pose those. And even during the break, if things come up and the university can offer help, reach out to us after the break too.
Absolutely.
So as we look ahead, let's talk a little bit about the spring semester. One of the things that we kind of do in that student success continuum is kind of that invest going forward, right?
Yeah.
In some ways it's a new start. We've got different classes, we got different faculty, different things are going on. It's a chance to kind of, put the battery to it and charge it back up. What should we look forward to? What can parents kind of help their student look forward to?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are a lot of opportunities for the student to kind of, they've got a semester or so under their belt. They're feeling more confident, looking for opportunities to connect with some of our student organizations and clubs or different activities. Maybe they're a step closer to being able to declare their major, and so they're really interested in trying to get some very practical or hands-on experience. And so the spring is a great time to explore that. I feel like, for a lot of students, it's really a awesome opportunity to connect with their advisor and make sure that, if they want to look into a summer internship or take some classes over the summer, they can kind of start working that into their plan as they move forward. And then, there are just some really exciting things going on campus. And so it's a great time for us to highlight some of those features that we're going to have in the new student center that's going to be opening in January, and a lot of activities and events that are going to be held there, and just a new space that our students are going to get to explore. So I know we're excited about that.
Yeah. and you've got an engagement piece coming up in late January.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and January 26th, which is a Saturday, we are excited that we'll be able to offer tours for our families to come and view the new Student Center and explore it. We also have worked with our partners over in athletics to secure a block of tickets to the men's basketball game later that day at 4 p.m. And we're going to have $10 tickets for our families. So we hope that families will come back, get to see all the fun things happening on campus, and then enjoy the basketball game.
Yeah.
We've had some exciting times the last couple of weeks. We have a new athletic director. We have a new football coach. There's kind of an excitement around athletics. Joe Dooley has started to make some great changes with the basketball program. And while they're all still in the early phases, we expect to see that grow. So I think there's a lot more excitement when it comes to that. As mentioned, the new Student Center will open up January 7th. I think we may even try and do a little Facebook Live around the opening of the Student Center with the ribbon cutting. It'll be at 1 o'clock on January 7th. So hopefully if you can't make it back to campus, you'll be able to connect with us virtually on that. But there's a lot to look forward to. My kind of parting piece of advice to parents would be engage your students. Be careful not to over-engage them. Give them the opportunity to catch up. Give them the opportunity to kind of be back a part of a family that maybe they haven't been for a couple of months. Tell them, as you guys mentioned, tell them what the expectations are. If you expect them to be at the family dinner, make sure that they know that. They also need to tell you if they want to go hang out with some friends.
Exactly.
They need to be able to have that. So open dialogue and conversation is probably a good piece. Emily, Lynn, Lauren, any parting thoughts that you want to share?
I think you wrapped it up nicely, but I think, having those open discussions is definitely, I think, going to help the whole break be, a nice visit home for your students.
I think my big piece is just know that there are always options. And so when we hope that everything goes well, and certainly that is our kind of parting wish, is that this semester has been a positive experience. But if it hasn't, please know that there are people who want to talk about kind of what options are out there, and then really help your student feel confident and ready to come back in the spring with a plan and a place in action to be able to tackle sort of the next semester. So just know that there are a lot of alternatives out there, and there are a lot of people who really care about our families here at ECU and want to help and provide that support.
Thank you both. I appreciate that. And we wish everybody a very safe and happy holiday season and a great new year. We know 2019 will be fantastic, and Pirate Parents Live will be here throughout the year to kind of give you updates and keep you posted on information that we want to share.